Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL for 5% off your order. We're also sponsored by Quiver Time, makers of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine card-holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their site for 10% off your purchase. And by Architect, a deck hosting website that doesn't sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them for all your deck list needs. Now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect, Cool Stuff, and Quiver Time. I laughed because today I have one of the luminaries of cEDH, of one of the, I guess, I don't know if you're the head of the team, but certainly one of the prominent faces of one of the biggest teams of content creators out there playing with power. I have PWP Ryan joining me today. And no, I'm not trying to subtweet you with my intro. That's just the intro for every episode I do. I know sometimes some folks are like, God, you hate cEDH. I'm like, no, I think it's rad. I just don't play it. In our community, sometimes not playing it is the same as hating.
Yeah, especially in certain social media circles, they can be construed as one and the same. That is for sure.
Yeah, I feel like the worst and best thing to ever happen to Magic was Magic players getting together to talk about Magic cards.
That's actually right on the head. That's a nail right on the head. Oh, that's
You're
so
like,
good.
Oh, this is so rad. I can share my passion and hobby with these people. Oh my God, it is horrible. Why did I do this?
My opinion differs just ever so slightly to the left, and it's the worst thing ever.
It's the worst thing ever. It's like suddenly, I think, and I don't mean to start us off on a weirdo note, but I'm just like, this is fresh in my head, is like, I have done things, I have said once or twice, like, cEDH is great, and I'm glad people play it. And suddenly, my quote tweets fill up with like, look at this E-lister who's sitting there and just trying to punk. I'm like, I'm glad you exist. People should, I'm glad there's a place for folks to play who want to play high-level Command. Great. Mm-hmm. But they're like, oh, so you hate everything, is it? I'm like,
yes.
Oh,
yes.
Lord have mercy. Yes, I do. I hate everything. I hate Commander. I hate Magic. I'm just here because somebody told me to be. So, yeah, man. Yeah, so I don't know. I invited you on because I think you're a really interesting person, and I think that what your group does is really cool. Like, I like watching your content, and certainly you guys are huge. And so I thought it would be just really interesting to see how you got into cEDH and where you see it going and stuff like that. Mm. So when did you find Magic, or how did you get into Magic, I guess?
Sure. So I'm an old man, first of all. So this
I came by these white hairs, honestly, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I acquired mine through battle-hardened skills. My journey in cEDH, not at cEDH, sorry, Magic started all the way back in 1998. I was like 14 years old, and I know, I'm just a wee lad, just a wee child. So this is before some of your viewers were even born. So just imagine back in the dinosaur ages. And that's class of 93. Love it. I'm class of 02.
Some of us started way early.
Yeah.
I know this is my Magic. At Minnesota, they had these Letterman jackets for Magic, the class of 93, because that's the year it started. And I was like, I need one, even though I started playing in 94. Anyways.
That's great. Yeah, so basically I started playing then. Back Saga Masks were the two blocks I kind of started in, which were really wild blocks to be starting in. A lot of my friends had Tempest and stuff like that, and
which is also a wild block.
Yeah, it was really cool. Some of the most broken stuff you'd ever see in your life, and we were playing with them like they were nothing. Sleeves didn't exist back then. That wasn't a thing. We were playing with Gaia's Cradles, all the crazy stuff, all expensive. Lotus petals were being thrown around because they were common.
They were common.
Yeah, it was nothing, It was like, so fun.
Allurin is just there.
Yeah, Allurin's just a card, and we do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. Oh, it was a great time to be playing Magic. It was a weird time to be playing Magic because Mercadian Masks came out right after Saga, the Saga block.
And it was all bad and awful.
Yeah, it was real bad.
I mean, look, really Rebels and stuff are cool. And of course, our friend Rebel is also cool. But that said, after you're sitting there like, you know what, turn 0, I'm putting out Tolarian Academy and just winning, going to like, this is a 12 mana card that does literally not even enough to play in Commander is kind of like, what?
Yeah, like it's stupid things that like make you tap your lands for no reason or sacrifice all your lands or stupid stuff like that. It was a terrible set.
The mechanics were so bizarre. And you know, people sit there and like, my first set was Nemesis, and I'm like, how are you still here?
Yeah, that's and I look back and I think the same thing. I'll be like, how in the world did I still play? Thank God, the Saga block was right before it, the Urza's block, you know, or else I would not be here right now. Prophecy, the best card in it. It's a common Rhystic Study. That was the best card.
And the thing is, the Rhystic Study wasn't even a good card until like decades later.
Yep. I mean, the drop off is so steep in Prophecy. There's that one card, and then literally all the other trash in that.
And then there's just cards that exist in Magic.
Oh,
like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Like, there's a card called Troublesome Spirit. It's a rare. Okay, Troublesome Spirit's a 2/2/2, 3/4 flying spirit, and you're like, okay, that's fine. At the end of your turn, tap all lands you control. Why does a mono blue card tap all the lands you control so you can't do blue things on their turn?
I don't know what they were thinking, or they just weren't thinking, or they were just knee jerk reacting to the Urza's block, and it was terrible. I'm surprised I'm here too, quite frankly.
Right. Now, I will say this, and I don't mean to make this into a Prophecy block or Urza's block, whatever the hell block episode, but there was in Prophecy the Avatar cycle.
Yes,
Avatar of Woe and Friends, and those were at least cool cards.
They were cool flavor cards, you know. But Avatar of Hope and Woe and
the
Fury.
Other guys.
Yeah, the ones where they like cost like 6 less or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, and plus Avatar of Woe is like also just one of the coolest cards ever. It's like, if destroy target creature, it can't be blocked, and it's got like, you know, it's sick, right? But
it's so good, it's so cool, and the art on it.
Oh yeah, amazing. Dude, Braum just kills, right?
Yes.
And then the thing is, the rest of it though, you have to play that set, and that's not good. Like,
maybe that's their balance. You know, fading was a nemesis, and I like the fading mechanic a lot. Sky Shroud Behemoth, the 10/10 that enters tap with fading 2. What's the one? There's a Blastoderm fading 3, 5/5 with Shroud, Tangle Wire.
Spore Frog was in there, which is
that's right. Spore Frog was in Prophecy. Love that card.
Sorry, I'm just like, I don't know why I'm looking. You know what? I'm going to get out of the Prophecy Scryfall window because otherwise I'll just sit here and we'll be doing a Shivam Wheeler episode, and that's weird.
It's a nostalgia thing. I will always have a soft spot. My favorite card ever is Squee, Goblin Nabob.
The card is awesome.
Yep, it's actually not. It's not great. But I love that card. It was a really cool card.
My favorite card of all time is Mahamoti Jin, if you want to talk about cards that are just not great.
That's fair. All right, you might have had me on that one.
It's like, it's just a 5/6 flyer. It wins limited games. Yeah. But it's also like, I love that card, right? Like, just, you know, we don't pick the card that grabs us and brings us in.
That's
like,
true.
Sometimes it's Jedit Ojanen, you know, just like big old vanilla tiger, man. And I'm like, I love this thing. But here we are.
Yep.
So when did you find Commander then?
I found Commander. So years and years later, I kind of fell out of Magic because all my friends fell out of Magic. They went into other things, and I just kind of laid dormant, like so many other players do. And in 2000 and I believe 12, one of my friends who was working, he's like, hey, you know, I was just playing this card game with my friends at work during our lunch break. It's really cool. Have you ever heard of it? It's called Magic the Gathering. And I was like, boy, howdy, you need to sit down. I'm about to school you on some stuff. And I was like, this was one of my favorite card games of my time. I've never wanted to quit it, but you need people to play with in order to play. And all my friends quit. And so we got into it immediately. I dived right into the deep end. I learned all the updated mechanics, like damage no longer goes on the stack and mana burn isn't a thing anymore and stuff. And shortly after that, basically, our friend group and stuff was introduced to this weird format called Commander. And I was like, what is it?
What year was that? Do you know?
2012. Yeah, 2012.
So around the same time I did.
Yeah.
It's funny because like when I came back to Magic, my friend brought me back to a draft, which I had never done before because I'd stopped playing around Visions, for Rise of Eldrazi block, which is not the easiest block to draft in the world. And my first rare was a Sarkhan Planeswalker, the one that only goes down, a card type I had never seen before that I thought had summoning sickness. And I was just like,
Sorry.
everything about this is bad.
That's right. I was thrown into mythic rares and
Yeah.
planeswalkers, and I was like, "What is this
What the
game?"
hell's going on?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still for it, but it's
Yeah.
so many things are different. Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Do
but
you,
basically after that we got into Commander, and I actually from that day I swore to myself I would never sell out again. I would never quit again. Even if I lie dormant, I'll never do it again. And to this day I still haven't.
yeah,
So
because we all learned that first mega mistake of selling out all your cards or just throwing them away or whatever. Just like, I don't need this crap. It's just sitting in my house. And it's like, why did I do that?
yeah, I had dozens of Lotus petals
I
from
mean,
friends. I had Gaia's cradles. I had all that stuff.
yeah, my problem was that I had a deck which has a mortgage worthy mana base in it, and it was stolen from my brother's backpack in middle school. Like all of my tundras and taigas, it had 4 of every duel. It had all the things, and it was just. And after that, I was like, I can't do this. And of course,
Yeah.
now I'm here doing a podcast because I can do this, I guess.
Yeah, about to say the game has an appeal that
yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah, it's
Like,
so fun. So fun.
I think one of the problems that we on the online discourse run into a lot of is people forget that we're playing a card game that we really like to play.
Yeah.
And that this is fun. And if it's not fun, maybe we should reconsider our relationship with what this card game and our online presence and whatever is to find that fun again, right?
Yeah, and you'd think by listening or like reading some people that, gosh, that is just not what they're doing. Be like, wow, do you hate everything? Why are you playing this game? Go play something else.
It's like,
you know?
And one of the weird things I think about humans and just in general, in terms of like our tribal behavior and whatever, is that we have this tendency of if everybody isn't liking the thing the way I like it, either I'm wrong or you all need to be convinced or you're wrong. Right.
Yes.
Like, and nobody wants to say like, oh, I must be mistaken or I'm doing something different. They're like, I need you to like this the way I do to justify my belief in this thing. And it's like, that's not a healthy way to approach things. You shouldn't need to force everybody around you to do the thing for you to be able to enjoy it.
What a crazy thought. What a crazy concept you have.
I feel like if you can't enjoy a thing because you enjoy it, then maybe you don't enjoy it.
Yeah. What a huge growth moment for every listener out there right now.
Right?
First, evaluate whether or not you might be wrong in a situation or whether or not maybe you could learn something from the information presented in front of you.
Like, I mean, and not to be solipsistic about this, but like sometimes I sit there and I'm like, you know what? When I first discovered cEDH, I immediately was like, this is just pub stomping assholes who are just here to crush us. Right? Like, because that's all it was for a long time was like, oh, we all sit down and then this dude's going to come by with this mega deck who's just like, oh, yeah, it's just fine. Cards I own. And then, combo kill us out in turn 3 or like Elspeth Armageddon or whatever garbage. And we were just like, we didn't even know what cEDH was. We were just like, that's cEDH players. Those guys are just pub stomping jerks.
Tryhards. Yep.
Yeah. Like I remember at PAX 2016, I sat down in Card Kingdom in Seattle at Mox to play because Josh and Jimmy were having a card and Magic Commander get together at the Mox whatever during GP Seattle during PAX. So I went there and I play down. I pull out my Tajik deck, which is soldier theme, super like at that point there were no good cards that had been printed for it. So it was literally a 4 or a 3, maybe even worse, just pile of cards Shivam likes. And I sit down at a table with 3 dudes who are obviously locals, who've obviously been playing together for a long time and have a meta. One dude is playing Leovold with like all the wheels. The other person's playing like Teferi puzzle boxy type thing. The other person's playing like take all the turns type cards. And I'm like, who are all these jerks just ruining my game? It took me literal years to realize I was the random dude who came to their table without saying anything, sat down with my pet deck and just trashed the experience of 3 very experienced, highly high-powered players who were out to try to crush each other and not just punk on me.
Yep.
For years, I was resentful of this group of people who are like, oh, look at them. They just ruined the table. And like the moment that epiphany where I sat there and I'm like, oh, no, the problem's not them. They were fine. I sat down at their table and didn't tell them what I was doing. And I brought it down for everybody. And I'm like, what? And that's like immediately when like, my opinion on this whole thing changed. I'm like, look, and that and Flash. Flash, I was like, look, you guys deserve to be able to have fun games that don't suck, that you can just sit and like, because what I realized is that if you guys have a place to play the games you want to play at the power level you want to play with other people who want to do it, you're not going to crush my game. I'm not going to wreck your game. Everybody's going to be happy. And if Flash is the one thing that's holding you guys from having that, let's get rid of Flash, because then you guys can go and have a deeply varied like metagame, lots of different decks and stuff. And I can have a place to send people who want to play high-powered Commander. It's such a weird revelation. And of course, people hated me for that.
Yeah, but that's also because it was just the idea of just hating cEDH and you accepting cEDH for what it was, even though that you weren't a part of it, you were accepting it. You said what they're doing is fine over there. It's perfectly fine. And they saw that as accepting it. And a lot of people weren't ready to accept it. They didn't like the idea. They were in a very similar position that you were in, where you said, I'm actually bringing down the experience for these three people that are actually trying to have a high-powered experience. And
we just didn't have the vocabulary.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Just didn't have the vocabulary for it.
Yeah, and I think I will continue to say I think cEDH is not a good branding, and I wish somebody had chosen something different.
Me too. I actually hate the moniker to this day. I wish we could change it, but it's so embedded at this point. We don't know what to even change it to.
Because C is such a nebulous term. It could be casual. It could be competitive. Like, I don't know what you would call it, but like.
But it's not competitive. That's the thing.
No, it's not competitive.
We still play for no stakes. We play Commander just like everybody else does. It's just Commander. It's just Commander way up there. That's all it is.
That's exactly, I think, the biggest problem is that people are like, oh, it's competitive. I'm like, no, it's not tournament. These guys are sitting there playing with the same Coke bottles and chips and hanging out with their buddies. It's just they're trying to crush each other on turn 3 instead of turn 13.
That's right. Like, we take the same amount of game actions as people who take 10 turn games. We just do them in the 3 turns to 5 turns that we have the game. Because like the average cEDH game, it'll last from like usually between 4 and 6. And everyone's like, oh, that sounds super short. No, we play the same amount of cards you do. We just do them very compact.
Well, it's like when you look at a vintage game might be 5 turns tops. However, those turns are like 15 to 20 minutes and there's 30 cards on the stack.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's the perfect comparison. And it's still fun. It's still a blast,
if you like that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Like, I think one of the distinctions I came up with is casual Commander likes to play on the table and cEDH likes to play on the stack.
On the stack. That's exactly right. Yep.
So with that in mind, how did you guys move from, like, I guess, regular Commander to, like, where did you get a group from? Why do you have a group? Why did you start making YouTube videos? And how did you find competitive cEDH or whatever it is?
So what happened is we played casual Commander for years, all the way up until about 2018. It was what we did. And what happened was that there was a shortage in our group at one time. We were down to 3 players. And I said, hey, there's somebody that I know. Let's invite him to there. He said he plays Magic. He brought a Commander deck in, and he was exactly what everyone always called cEDH back then. He was a pub stomper who brought a level 10 deck, or however you want to define these power levels, and he brought it to our casual table. And he was doing Labman Tainted Pack stuff and crazy, like all kinds of like just completely steamrolling us all night long. And we asked him, that's not really how we're trying to play here. Could you maybe bring something else next time? He says, oh, yeah, sure. Sorry about that. Next week, he came in and basically did the same thing with a different deck. He just wasn't getting it, And it was really unfortunate. And basically, the long short of it is he ended up getting busy and our other person came back. But the rest of our play group said, we should probably build decks to battle him if and when he returns. And I... out of everyone, was the one who held out. I hated cEDH, even though I never played it, even though I never saw it. I saw that, and that's what I thought cEDH was. An unfun, pub stomping, feel bad time. That's what was my opinion of it was. And I was the one who held out. I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play that way. Look how bad that was. And they said, well, we'll build it. And, in case he comes back, maybe we can kind of make something work. And so I, in a spiteful and vindictive way, said, all right, I'm about to teach these boys a lesson tonight. So I went and said, let me go find a mono red deck. I'm a mono red player at heart. And I'll go find a red deck to basically show them why this isn't fun. I'm going to prove why it's not fun. And I built Godo Bandit Warlord. It's the deck I played at this day. And we sat down and I was like, let's go. Let's do this. You guys asked for it. We never had more fun than we had ever had in our entire time playing together. I was never more happy to be so wrong about something in my entire life.
I love Godo Helm, by the way. Like that's so it, like that and Kinnan are the two cEDH decks that I would enjoy the most, and probably Najeela. But Najeela and like Winota, but they just feel kind of Winota's like Staxy, and I don't really like that. But Najeela, Godo Helm, and I think Kinnan are the three that I would want to actually build.
Kinnan is actually one of the two decks that I recommend to new players. Kinnan, it's like, do you
like
big mana? Town. Yeah. Do you like value? Do you like big mana? Do you like flipping into huge things like Jin-Gitaxias and Void Winnowers and stuff like that? Or just like Tidespout Tyrants and Hullbreaker Horrors?
Yeah, exactly.
Or even just, how about just Consecrated Sphinx? That's all played in Kinnan on cEDH.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was looking at people playing the Kinnan deck when I went to Silicon Dynasty, and I was just like, this is the cEDH I want. This is just big, dumb Timmy things, but at a power level that's like stupid. It's just like, I just don't like counterspells.
Yeah, that's
like, I love watching like one-on-one games. I'll play the most cutthroat, like just mean ass decks you can imagine. But in like multiplayer, I'm like, let them do the thing. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's a mindset that's just hard to get over sometimes, because you're like, oh, but if I built this deck to do all the things, it's like, well, yeah, sometimes we got to grow and learn that our decks also have to protect ourselves. You can't just live on the goodwill of the opponents all the time.
I think they just scratch different itches. Like, cEDH players still play Casual Commander all the time.
Of course they do. It's like,
because it's just Commander.
Because it's just Commander. Like, that's the thing. The other reason I hate this distinction is that we're playing the same format. We're using the same rules. We're just playing in different sides of the pool, right? It's fine, whatever. Everybody carries a Commander deck, and I just carry decks that are different power levels. Sit down at the table and pick whatever's convenient. So, that's a fascinating way to discover cEDH, and I'm glad that you were able to come out of that experience like, hey, I actually had a good time. And like, because it's hard, especially if you're playing mono red and everybody else is like, I force will your thing, or I'm monitoring your thing, and you're like, but and then, like, that was probably pre-dockside on top of that, so you're like,
it was pre-dockside.
Mana sucks in mono red. What are we gonna do?
Artifacts, count to 11. It's really great. It's fun.
Right. So, what made you want to take the leap to become content?
So the leap to content was basically, I had thought about possibly doing content creation for Magic, just as a form of creative expression for a while. But what really kind of pushed me over the edge into really saying, let's give this a shot and see how it goes, was the idea that my discovery of cEDH was that way. I was wrong about it. I personally felt wrong. I was wrong. I had these notions that were handed to me that it's bad without actually ever verifying it. And I was like, I can't be the only person who feels this way or could feel this way about this way that we play this part. And so I was like, why don't we put out some videos to show that cEDH can be fun and exciting and, energetic and, very action packed, because that's the way it plays on the table. And I was like, let's see if we can maybe help some people understand that maybe cEDH could be a lot of fun. cEDH content up until that point was very analytical. And that's the way a lot of them like to play. It's like, here's this play. This is why I did this. I'm going to hear the table talk. I'm going to watch all the shuffling and stuff like that. And they were long form videos. And let me go on record that there's nothing wrong with that. But that was the only type of content that was cEDH content out there. That's not how I like to consume my Magic content. I like it short form. I like it narrated. I like it that I can digest it on a lunch break, basically. I don't want to sit down for 90 minutes and not play Magic and watch other people play Magic. So I want to be entertained. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. That wasn't how I wanted to consume it. So I was like, let me put it in a format that I would maybe want to consume, and we'll see how it goes. So we created our first video and we put it out there, and it was in that style. It was, it was cut and narrated. It was easy to digest. It was like 10, 15 minutes. And the rest is history, really.
That's an incredibly savvy observation, right? Like, because obviously one of the hindrances of Commander, and one of the reasons I lament making this my focus, is like Commander games take forever.
They do.
And especially when you're at a con and everybody's like, I want to play Commander with you. And I'm like, I can't, because if I sit down with you, I'm going to be here for the next 3 hours.
3 hours.
Yeah. But it's like being able to make a digestible edited version of this format. And you see it with like Command Zone, they do that as well. I mean, they've started to do a lot more like slice and dice editing to make it more, edible, I guess. And like, it's just not fun to watch Shuffle Cam unless there's something going on during that time, which is funny or enjoyable, right? And so, and Commander, God knows, especially in like high level Commander, there's a lot of fetching going on.
A lot of shuffling, a lot of tutors, a lot of fetching, a lot of shuffling.
We don't need to see you go through that motion. Just tell us what you got at the end.
Yep.
And you guys have like 700 something videos and 89,000 subscribers. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Like, obviously you've struck a nerve. And so like, it's either like people really want Commander content more of, or they want high level Commander content, and you guys put out a lot of good product. And obviously your team is huge. There's like a lot of you, isn't there?
Yeah, 11 of us total.
Yep. That's like a Pro Tour testing team level. That's like
yes, it is.
Like, we don't have collectives in Magic like that. I mean, maybe Command Zone, but they count as like one entity more than like a group. You don't really see them as like individual peoples. But like, you guys have so many like flavors of content generation, and it's frankly impressive. Like, it's honestly like the rest of us could learn a lot from the way you guys build out your team. How has it been working out for you?
There's always pros and cons to having a big team. Like, there's a lot more people management that goes on. That's what a lot of my job is nowadays, is managing people, managing schedules, managing content, and how it all lines up and who's going to be where and things like that. That's become a big part of the job. But also at the same time, I get so many different viewpoints and so many different approaches and so many different play styles that our content doesn't really get stagnant. Back in 2022, it was time she flies. It was just a year ago. We started having a lot of repetition on our channel because our team size wasn't as big. And that repetition was really starting to show through in our numbers and our comments and stuff. They're like, oh, this deck again. And I was like, they're right. We need to maybe start to create a little bit more variance here. And increasing the team size.
cEDH players and variants, huh?
Yeah, I know it's an oxymoron, right? That's not something we're
tutor for another player to.
That's probably an Infinity card, yet it's not legal. The acorn on the bottom shows it's not legal. So. But yeah, so like, we have all these players, and some of them are from the 1v1 space, and they bring their flavor into cEDH, and some of them are just like diehard cEDH players who win tournament EDH all the time and stuff like that. Big shout outs to Ashani, Jamaican dude, Mike, who won one of the tournaments, Alana, who constantly top 16s and has won tournaments and stuff like that. And everyone else too. Matt Sperling is on our team, and
Pro Tour winning Matt Sperling.
Emma Skyward. She was #1 mythic in the world on Arena.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
I'm a big
yeah,
fan
yeah.
with Prince.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of our entire team, and you know, and just like, and that's not leaving out anybody else and their importance, because they're all the rest of them are super important too, and they all bring their own unique styles to it. We have somebody who really likes stacks and cEDH, someone who's really big into cubing and stuff like that, and they bring those types of styles into it. We love that diversity in our team, and it brings a lot more variety and approaches to the content.
So, how do you deal with the idea of like there's this one thing I've heard a lot of in from cEDH content creators of like, look, people want us to play the best possible deck, or they want us to play the most diverse kind of pool to see the most varied decks, but like your numbers are showing one thing and people are saying another thing. But how do you deal with the fact that people are like, oh look, it's another Thassa victory, or oh
Mhm.
look, it's another turn one dockside, GG's, I guess. Like, because cEDH, the meta is kind of it is what it is.
Yeah.
And how do you guys deal with that? How do you make content that can hit these demographics?
Understanding that you can't please everybody.
Hmm,
Content creation at its finest.
fact.
You're just, you do one thing, the other side will be unhappy, and vice versa. So what you do is you mix it up. You can have a Thassa's Oracle victory from a really high powered deck, and then the next week you can have somebody who can finale of devastation for 28 and pump up a huge amount of creatures in Alpha Swing, or somebody who does a really convoluted combo line that you've never seen before with a really niche deck. And in every single one of those instances, you're going to have somebody who says, well, that isn't what I was looking for, and this is what I'm looking for. And then you just kind of balance those scales out all the time.
It's so funny. Like you'll be like, oh yeah, we made a huge video with like a combo kill that's amazing, and people are like, yeah, but this deck is garbage and it's going to lose to Thassa's Oracle. Why didn't you just play Thassa's Oracle? And it's like,
Oh, yep.
okay, bro, what do you want me
Yeah.
to do?
Or they're like, why didn't you just cast Thassa's Oracle? That would have been easier. I'm like, wow. You just complained about it last week, but here you are this week saying, why don't we do it that way? Yeah.
I mean, why don't we? Because it would be the same goddamn video every week. How about that?
It's the same video every week is why. And people won't like that. And so it's a balancing act for real. It really is. There's times when somebody will win on turn 1 or 2, which happens in our format. It doesn't happen as often as people think it does, but it does happen. And we don't turn those into videos. That's
Yeah.
not interesting, you know?
It's interesting in theory, but it's also like 12 minutes long, and you're like, this was sure
It's
happened.
it's interesting when you play.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not entertaining content, and that's also a big difference in content creation. What will make for a great game isn't always going to 100% translate into what will make really good content. A classic example of that is a stacks game, when everybody's locked down in the game, and to each their own. It's actually really interesting because it's a puzzle you have to solve. I can't do this, but now I have to do that, and I have to count for this over here. How am I going to time this? Can I interact over there? That's a lot of fun when you're in the game. But when you're watching it, what are you seeing? I draw and pass. I draw and pass. I draw and pass.
Yeah, because you don't have the mental dialogue of all the
Yeah.
chains of happening, and watching people tanking while they're trying to solve the puzzle and not telling you how they're going to solve the puzzle because they don't want to tell the other players how they're going to solve the puzzle is kind of boring.
That's right. It doesn't make good content. It makes for a fun game.
Yeah.
Just not good content.
And do you ever worry that building decks for content causes people to copy those decks to bring back to their home that are not necessarily fun to play with their friend, but are like good, fun, explosive decks? Like, we see this on other EDH channels all the time of like, these guys are making decks that are really fast or really powerful or really cool that look really good on camera, and then folks copycat them and go home and they're crushing their groups. And it's like,
That's a tough one.
As content creators.
That's a tough one because there is a degree of responsibility that you do have as a content creator, but that can only go so far, because at the end of the day, we are in the entertainment business is what we are in. Whenever I talk about YouTube, I usually distill it down to 2 main categories. You are either an entertainer or you are an educator. You have how-to videos and this, that, and the other videos where you seek to learn something. And then you have entertainment where you seek to, get enjoyment from watching the content or consuming it. And whenever I find myself at odds with those things, I have to center myself and say, okay, what am I? Am I an educator or an entertainer? And I'm like, okay, I'm an entertainer. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to entertain. And if somebody takes a deck and they say, well, this actually isn't good or something like that, or it didn't work out, be like, well, I wasn't trying to give you a how-to on this deck. I wasn't trying to give you, this is what you should bring to your local metas. There is plenty of other content out there that covers that gamut automatically, and I don't need to fill that myself.
Yeah, finding your niche and finding out what you're good at doing. It's just it's challenging because so many people look at these as like, guide stones instead of just TV shows. And it's
Yes.
almost like it feels like the same complaint our parents made when we were watching cartoons as a kid, and somebody does something really stupid and obviously comic that they can get away with because they're a 2D animated character. And we're like, but Bart was able to do that. Yeah, but Bart, if he dies, they can just bring him back. Like, I can't bring you back if you skateboard off a cliff. Let's think about this for a second.
Yep, that's exactly
But
right.
I think we're just losing media literacy in the modern age. But that's a different podcast entirely, because it's like,
yes, it is. That's true. I
bro,
could go on about that for a long time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So cEDH has experienced explosive growth since pandemic, at least since lockdown. I guess all the crazy degens with hardcore high powered decks who had nothing better to do were like, well, I got all this legacy stuff sitting around. I guess I can make cEDH decks. And it feels like it is, at least in online circles, it's been growing exponentially. Like, from what our numbers and stuff have talked, from what Wizards has said, it's still a small portion of the greater Commander sphere, but it's growing. It's growing quite a bit, especially as like Brazilians pick up cEDH, and like the Norwegians who used to be all hardcore legacy heads pick up cEDH. Where do you see the format growing? Have you seen, like, how has this impacted you guys, or like, how are you seeing the way the players are now?
One of the major things that I have seen over the years that we've been doing this is definitely growth. I mean, that much is obvious, which has been fantastic. But also at the same time, a difference in perception of cEDH. Basically, we don't get people anymore that says, I hate cEDH and I hate you for liking it. We don't get that anymore, which is great. I absolutely love that it's become more adopted, and cEDH players don't have to have such thick skin all the time just to play this format. And I find that wonderful. I love that is where it has gotten to so far, that people are more accepting of it. Instead of saying, I hate cEDH and I hate cEDH players, now they say, yeah, cEDH players, I don't play the format. It's over there though. Yeah, they're a bunch of good folks. Yeah, go check it out. That is what I love most of all. That it's very, very accepting. That's what's been great.
Yeah, it really has been, because like, I think we have seen a huge sea change from like when people started complaining about Flash or whatever, because like there was a lot of resistance. People were like, oh, those guys, they want to wreck the format, let them wreck the format. We don't care. We're going to move on. But I think it's this weird, like, I don't want to make too much of it because it's just a card game and it's just a couple of slices of different sides of card game. But it feels a lot like people are starting to accept that, hey, we like different kinds of Magic. We aren't all just siloed in one type of Magic. Sometimes I want to play this one. Sometimes I want to play that one. And having places for folks to play that are clearly labeled helps. It helps a lot, right? Like, if I brought a dual deck to LGS night and it's basically vintage legal, but nowhere else because it's got random weirdo cards in it, and I sit down at the vintage pod, I am not going to have a good time. I'm going to get like obliterated instantaneously. But if I sit there and say, yo, I brought effectively a kitchen table deck and those guys are playing vintage, I'm going to sit at the kitchen table area and they're going to sit at the vintage area and we're going to be fine. It's better for everyone, right?
And everyone has a good time.
That's the goal.
Nobody steps on anyone's toes.
Yeah,
no one gets upset.
That's why I think Rule Zero has been such a success, no matter how much people dog on it. Just being able to sit there and say, yo, I've got a high powered deck. Great. Let me pull out my high powered deck. Works out. It's just,
Yep. I mean, and cEDH is a really great example of Rule Zero in practice.
Yeah, it is.
So Rule Zero as a concept, a lot of people, like you said, have been very critical of it. I think that, some of the vocabulary can be updated, and I think that'll go a long way to help. But the concept in and of itself has been really great. Yeah. And cEDH is proof of that. Hey, we're all having a Rule Zero conversation by just saying 4 letters, cEDH. And we're like, yeah, sounds good. Let's do it. And it works.
It is an entire built-in package of assumptions and accepted premises. And it's
Yeah.
just like there's a lot of things I envy about the cEDH, like the organization you guys have, the fact that you have such uh like structure and such just formula and like formulaic ideas so that people can just jump in and know what they're doing. Like
Mhm.
casual commander is the entire rest of the pool, and that is like the ocean is very large. You guys have like a
Mhm.
small lake that's very like it's a beach that's got the little buoys on it and say like don't go past this, but in here these are our swimming rules, you know. It's like don't get eaten by an alligator, right? Over there
Yep.
we're like I can be a guppy, I can be a whale, and I'm just swimming here in casual land. And it's like, I
Yeah,
wish we had more of
CDH. I remember we always people love to use the power scale of 1 to 10
that.
all the time, and we don't need to get into the debates of that. But usually CDH is always labeled as 10, right?
Yeah,
It's number 10.
it's
One
atomic
through
scale.
nine's really big.
Yeah.
That's a big range. 1 through 9 is huge.
Like there's a very large difference between a 4 and a 7, folks. It's
Yes.
like there's a whole other mess of numbers out there to be using. Like people are like, oh yeah, these are all precon level decks. I'm like, precons are very good now. I don't know if you've noticed, but the precons that come out are like really, really powerful and can crush a lot of my homemade threes. You know, it's like,
They're good too. They're
yeah.
really good. I props to WotC. I mean, everyone can be critical of WotC all they want and stuff like that, but wow, they've
I
been
mean,
doing really well over these last 18 months.
if you look at the way I look at it is if you look at every precon that's come out since Zendikar Rising, all the precons that have come out have been playable out of the box at a store slash really, really strong. Like the AC deck is nuts. It's
Mm-hmm.
stupid good, you know, and like just the Warhammer decks are fantastic. The
Yes.
Who decks are very, very complicated. I don't know about that. Um, but what do you think would help cEDH the most? What do you think would hurt it the most?
Well, that's loaded. That's a loaded one.
How can I kill your format?
Yeah, you want to if you want to kill our format, I would say that at least currently, I'm not saying this will not change in the future. So where we currently stand now is that if WotC started to try and take it over, if they took it over and said we're going to sanction a bunch of formats, forget this 1v1 nonsense, Commander's the future, we're going to run tournament EDH is what we're going to
Oh,
call it,
God.
and we're going to run a pro tour with tournament EDH, that's it, we're done.
Yeah, once
And
you get someone like LSV sitting there building EDH eggs, what are we going to do?
not to mention just the price, the
Mm.
cost.
Oh,
WotC,
yeah.
they don't allow proxies. That's not happening out there. It's all proxyless.
Yeah, you want to use that Gaia's Cradle? It's going to be a real one.
It has to be a real one. And our decks, when they are non-proxied, are thousands of dollars, like high thousands. And that's tough. That's really, really tough. Like you'll see some vintage tournaments that happen and stuff like that, and they actually have like walled gardens, for lack of a better word. They have like ropes around them because they know they're playing with $100,000 inside of those tables or more. cEDH would be like that because we just have such expensive decks, anywhere between $2,000 and $10,000 decks, which is insane. So right now, at least right now, if WotC got a hold of it right at this second and started to just say, this is ours now, we're going to do stuff with it, that would be really rough for the
Yeah, because suddenly that Lion's Eye Diamond is not looking quite so free, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. But like, so being pro proxy, being, not having like, please do not think that you need to spend $5,000 to come play this game. Go print it out and we'll play right now. And it's a lot of fun. And we do not care. Any cEDH player I've seen anywhere has been perfectly fine with it. Like I even seen it as an anonymous person at the local shops, they're fine with it because they want people to play with.
I think that's exactly it. It's just like, we just want to play, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't let this be a limiter to you. I mean, for me, I like this is not a judgment on anybody else. Just I personally, I like to use pricing as just a deck building constraint for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think it helps me make more, because like I'm not trying to play the best deck. I'm just trying to play weirdo silly decks. And I like to play with the stuff I have. So I'm like, if I don't have it and it costs too much, then I'm going to find some weird substitute and people are going to be like, why aren't you playing the good one? It's like, well, because I put a restriction on myself. I'm not doing it to you. This is just a personal way I enjoy using the cards I have. Right. But like, I love that cEDH is proxy friendly. Like, why not? Whatever.
Yeah,
It's
and
Commander.
because you have a lot of issues when you run into like budget constraints and stuff like that. You have to nerf yourself in ways that not everyone can, and then it becomes a battle of the wallets and not a battle of the wits, and that's not fun.
Battle of the
That's
Wits is
never
still
been
illegal,
fun.
baby.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Although,
that's just never fun.
can you imagine if we let cEDH have 200 card decks?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know what we would do. 100 is already enough variants. 100's already enough. 200
Dude,
card decks.
the thing that the one criticism, or not criticism, the one thing that just like annoys me is that every good cEDH deck, except for like, it feels like we mentioned all the non ones, but it feels like every like cEDH deck tends to be a partner deck. And it's just like, we're always playing 8 cards, 98, like 2 dudes in the zone and 98 in the deck. And I'm like, why are they all value piles? I hate that so much. But like, what are you going to do? I can't ban partners.
No. Value piles is what allows you to grind into the game longer if your win is interrupted early, and that's why they're so much more resilient. But the thing is that once again, that's what I talked about earlier, where you scratch a certain itch when you're playing cEDH versus playing casual. I want to build something thematic, or I want to build something that does a thing and stuff. You have levels 1 through 9 of Commander to do that for you.
Exactly.
And then if you're like, I really want to battle on the stack today and see how good I can pilot, or how well I can battle these 3 opponents, that's what cEDH can do for you. And they're both fun in their own rights. I play casual. I also don't restrict. I restrict my budgets in casual too.
Yeah.
If I don't own it or anything like that, I don't put it in there. Because it's about an experience.
Yeah, and like personally for me, I'm like, there are 35,000 whatever Magic cards. You find something else that does the thing you want. If you don't have rampant growth, you find the fake rampant growth, or a cultivator, or whatever.
If you don't have Gaia's Cradle, put in Growing Rights of Itlamok.
Or
both. Or both. Exactly, or both.
I have one deck. My Apatra deck's got both Itlamok and Cradle in it, and it's like, that was my highest power deck. And then I played it against some folks online in one of the, I forget what was that group that was doing like spell table stuff early in the pandemic, and they were like, we have like, different slots that you can fit your deck into. And I was like, this is the highest power deck I've got. And they're great. It's low mid. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, play EDH. I remember that.
Yeah, play EDH. And I'm like,
play EDH.
Of course, my casual ass Magic deck, the best possible strongest deck I can come up with is like low mid. It's like barely enough to get into the door, and I'm like, oh, well, that's embarrassing.
So funny. Oh yeah, good old play EDH during the pandemic.
I'm just like, you know what, we did what we had to do, and hey, I fully believe that Commander over pandemic is the reason Magic survived it all.
I agree. I think that Commander, being able to play spell table is what prevented playing with power from dying. When the pandemic hit, we had serious conversations of quitting. I was like, how in the world are we going to play a 4-player game when no one can be in the same room as each other? How's that even going to work? And so we gave serious consideration to just quitting right then and there and be like, that's it. Well, what are we going to do? Oh, well, maybe we'll try it one day in the future. But spell table and the webcam based Commander saved Magic, saved playing with power. That's for sure.
All praise to Olivia for first figuring that one out. Olivia and these other folks who were doing like Twitch stream webcam stuff in Sacramento area and everything. And man, I don't know. They called 2020 the year of Commander, and in hindsight, it sure as hell was.
Just not for the ways they thought it was.
Just not for the ways they thought. It turned out that the death of all other Magic means that us casuals of all spectrums are the ones who are going to save this game, right?
That's right. That's a good way to put it. The death of all other formats. That's
it's like, look, Commander players, we can sit and play webcam Magic because there's nothing on the table. There's no stakes, so it doesn't matter. So if people are like fiddle faddling with their deck off screen, whatever, who cares? This Commander will shuffle up and do it again.
No stakes. If you need to win that bad, have it. It's yours. Whatever, man. I'm not playing for anything here.
Seriously. Yeah. Whereas if we're playing a modern tournament, suddenly it's a big deal.
Exactly.
Suddenly I can't take my deck off the camera. I don't understand. What's the problem?
Oh, the joys of tournament webcam Magic.
What do you
Don't
think
even get me started.
What do you think of the rise of tournament cEDH?
Tournament EDH,
Yeah,
yeah. I
tournament
think
EDH.
Tournament EDH is fantastic. I think that if WotC is going to insert themselves into the Commander format, I think that is a way that they will try to do it. The moment that they see that there is potential money to be made, I don't mean to dog on WotC for this,
Well, I
but
mean,
like,
they're a company that's
yeah,
they
there's
have a
money to be
goal.
made, and there's a huge pool of people out there who are willing to pay that money. I can see them trying to insert themselves into it. Overall, I think it's really great. I don't think it's perfect, but nothing is. And we still got a ways to go. I think that there are some decent people in this space that are creating tools that allow this to facilitate tournament EDH. I think overall it's a lot of fun. I've played in tournament EDH. I've hosted EDH events. We have our Mox Masters webcam tournament series.
Oh yeah,
We also
you guys have done events of your own as well, haven't you?
We have done them. We've done them on webcam. We've done them in person, and we think they're great. They're a lot of fun. They're not perfect yet. There are still certain things that we are figuring out. But that's what happens when you grow. You have growing pains. Some point systems and stuff like that. How do you deal with hidden information versus revealed information? And all of these things that, us as commander players kind of take for granted. You're like, hey, could you deal with that over there? And you kind of show them your hand or whatever in a commander game. You're like, I've got the Swords of Plowshares here. How does that work in tournament EDH?
That's collusion.
Exactly. That's collusion. That's not a good thing. So we're trying to sort out some of those things. Overall, I think it's positive. I think a lot of people have a lot of fun when they do it. And we'll just see where it goes. I hope it continues to grow, and I hope it continues to do well.
I have opinions about tournament EDH, but mainly what I found was that in the many tournaments I've seen and the competitive, like in the places where prizes were on the line and people are playing Commander, I find that the play style is a lot more constricted than I prefer, which is that like when I'm playing Commander, I'm more relaxed, loosey-goosey. We're on our phone, we're chatting, we're doing whatever. When you're playing like cEDH, but then more than that, tournament EDH, it's very much like passing priority. Paying attention to the whole stack, paying attention to all four people's tables. There's a lot of focus and a lot of like dedication. Like you have to pay attention, even when it's not your turn, even when your turn's not coming for 45 minutes, you've still got things you have to do. You can't fetch your land before the end of the turn because God knows someone might stifle it or whatever. Like, there's just so many considerations involved in the logistics of it that I don't find personally appealing. And I have a real challenge getting over the notion of playing Commander for things. That still feels just like I'm like, it's weird because it feels like, I'm like, oh, we can only play casual. Oh, we can play casual and, high power. Oh, we can play casual and high power and tournament. And I'm like, okay, well, this is now stretching a little bit past the window that I'm in, that I'm okay with. Like, but I mean, whatever. Like, I'm not playing in a tournament. I'm not running a tournament. If they want to do that, God bless, go ahead. Right? Like, I just worry and that the power level and the nature of putting prizes and stuff on the table is dragging the floor of the format higher and higher, such that people who want to play Scrub Tier Commander are running out of places to play Scrub Tier Commander because everybody's decks are being more tuned and more tuned and more tuned. But that's Magic, that's eternal formats, right? Like, we can't, the only way out of that is banning, and the Commander Rules Committee is not keen on banning their way to the perfect format because that means that we're going to kill the format, right? Like, the best thing we could do is hope that WotC stops printing friggin' Dockside.
Yeah, that'll never happen. They love card equity.
You know what they like?
Sets.
They're like, hey, there's a huge group of players who want to play things. What if we gave them cards they desperately need and want? Bowmasters? Sure.
Yep. Dockside? Sure. Another win condition strapped to an ETB? Sure. Why not? Yeah.
One of the worst things that ever happened to Commander was when they had a moment where they had like the play designers design Commander cards. And these are people who were like former Pro Tour winners, former people who were like 60 card masters who were very good at making. And they're like, man, there's not a lot going on in Commander during turns 2 and 3. What if we just start making like cards that are really good on turns 2, 3, and 4? And like, no. We want turn 12. We don't want turn 2. And it's like, oh no.
Well, yep, that's right.
Now the rabbit is out of the bag cage, dog, hole, whatever. The thing is out of the thing, and now all things
Yeah,
are bad.
the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people would say that tournament EDH is the antithesis of what Commander is.
Yeah,
You know,
Commander is like the
Commander
refuge from tournaments.
was the refuge from competitive Magic. And so, in some ways, to have it come full circle like that is kind of going against what the spirit of what the Commander format was originally intended to be.
Mm.
And to that, I say that is perfectly fine. But a lot of times you can't always understand what something is going to be when you first have it. It's
Sure.
just like having a child. You know, you say, oh, I'm going to have this child to make sure that it becomes a rocket scientist one day. You can't direct something like that. Sometimes you just have to let the things go where they go. And I am in 100% agreement with you, actually. I don't like the fact that the floor is being raised so much. I think that it is a combination of factors. I think we have gotten some amazing tools over the past 5, 7, 10 years in regards to Commander. Commander decks have become more cohesive and not just a random pile. A lot of the tools that we use to help assemble our decks and stuff have gotten better. But also at the same time, what we've seen is a major homogenization of this format as a whole. EDH Rec is a classic example I use. It is the best and worst thing to ever happen to Commander.
Right?
Because I don't even have to brew anymore. Commander, slap the 99 in, assemble it, let's go play. There was no creativity. There was no expression put into it. There was no love and care, which was a huge part of Commander for a very long time. And a lot of these little cards that you always loved seeing at the Commander table, they're just not seen anymore. They're all just, the top cards on EDH Rec, and that's what everyone just piles into their decks.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to know what my greatest lament in the world is, it's that, like, cards like Simic Sky Swallower just don't exist anymore, right? Like, cards like...
Yes, yeah, EDH All-Star, a Simic Sky Swallower. They printed that in every godforsaken set in the
right?
world.
Like, or like all these just random cards that were just like EDH staples for a million years are just not relevant anymore. People like new players, like, why would you even do that? That cost more, like... How are you going to get to 7 mana and it doesn't just like apocalypse the game? And I'm like,
yep.
Bro, oh, my child, we are from different eras of Commander.
Yep.
And it's like, there's a saying, a famous battle saying, which is the best battle plan lasts until the first arrow leaves the bow. And then it's all up in the air, right? And I don't know where Commander's going. I know that cEDH is growing, but I also know that normal Commander is also growing. Because it's proportional. There's more and more people picking up Commander. Not all of them are tournament players, but all of them want to be doing dumb things with 100 cards. So, like, honestly, I really, really want WotC to focus on 60 card decks and make them good again, so that we can go back to just being a fun time Fringe format, and people can go back to playing the Magic they want to play.
I think that if they stopped designing for Commander, it would actually help a lot. When you design for 60 card, that then Commander just picks it up and they did it. And my first Commander deck ever was a pile of rares from my rare bin or my rare binder. That's what we used to put our cards in, binders. Oh wait, I guess I still do. Anyway, but like that's what it was. It was a pile of cards, and we had a great time, and everything lasted until turn 12 because we didn't know how they all put together, and all this homogenization and this massive synergy and all these designed for Commander cards have definitely taken away some of that spirit, taken away some of that love, if you will. Not the passion, just some of the love. And if they went back to just really making sure that 60 cards are great, a couple of side effects would happen. I think Commander would get more interesting again. You're like, well, it just says target opponent, not each opponent, and it doesn't do this, that, and the other. And it doesn't scale with the table automatically. And all
God, I wish things didn't just say each opponent anymore.
Yeah, each opponent, every time. Another one is, I think a lot of the 60 card formats would get more popular again. Pioneer is rock, paper, scissors, and a lot of people don't like it. I'm not speaking for the entire Pioneer community. Yeah. Standard is standard right now. I'm not speaking for the whole standard community, but a lot of people don't like it.
For.
Yeah, like a lot of people
don't standard unless they have to, and it sucks because it's fun. Like I miss block constructed. I'll be honest, I miss playing with like a very limited pool of cards and making things like. I've said this before many times, but my favorite way to play Commander these days is literally draft box or set box constructed. which is to say I crack open one box, I build a commander deck out of whatever's in that box, and that's my deck. And like
that's actually a lot of fun. I love
it's
that.
hella fun, and it forces you to use bad like cards that would never see play otherwise. It forces you to, it lets you like really delve out set mechanics and everything, and also it gives you a hard power ceiling. Like you can never be better than whatever this card is, and like you're not using Soul Rings or Lion's Eyes or whatever it is. You're just here.
Yeah, and I think that there's something real to be said about if they would just focus on that again. We wouldn't have dock sides. We wouldn't have these crazy cards that have pushed the format. The Arcane Signets that's in like every single deck now.
Arcane Signet is like the biggest mistake. Like it's an innocuous mono rock, and yet it's completely ruined Commander.
Just it ruined every 3-drop rock.
Yeah, why would they ever do all
this? Yeah, it basically made it so that like you're like this 3-drop rock has to do something really, really good or really specific.
Yeah,
in order for me to run it nowadays, because why would I run that over just Arcane Signet, which is just better in every single way?
Like you're never gonna see people playing Monolith. Mind you, they probably shouldn't have been playing Monolith to begin with. But like you're not gonna see Monolith. You're barely gonna see freaking like Chromatic Lantern has been pushed out of the format. Like that's one of the or like like Coalition Relic. These are like fantastic old school just mono rocks that are just good. But they're not better than Arcane. Like when I see people playing like all these stupid Pain Talismans and like what is that 2 mana rock that gives you a colorless and lets you have no hand size?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
EK will pop it up on the screen. You guys will see it. But whatever, it's like no one would ever play that. But it's a 2 mana untapped colorless rock. Like let me tell you, the shock I felt when I discovered cEDH players were playing that one terrible land that taps for any color but does 3 damage to you.
Oh, Tarnished Citadel.
Yeah. And it's like, well, it's an untapped land that does it for any color. Of course I want it. I'm like, what?
We don't want it anymore. We've got enough lands printed. But for a long time, if we wanted a Tainted Pact mana base, which means every single land had to be unique, and we wanted to make sure our lands were all untapped when they entered and had all colors, we had to play with that garbage land. I hate that land so much. I hate it. Get lightning bolted out of blue. It's ridiculous.
It's so I'm like, how desperate are you that you're playing this crap?
Very desperate.
One of the most like worst beatings I ever got on Twitter. I posted that card up. I'm like, why are people playing this? And every cEDH player was like, how dare you insult? I'm like, bro, you're not playing this because you want to. Like, let's be honest for a second. This is not your pet card. This is not the card that got you into Magic 25 years ago. This is a card you're playing because you desperately want to win on turn 3. And let's be real about that.
That's true. This is something we need to talk about. So why is it that cEDH players are so defensive and so passionate?
Why?
Online?
Tell me why, please.
That's because if you remember back in the earlier days of when cEDH was around, people, like I said earlier today, were very, very aggressive and hateful towards cEDH players.
Sure.
And so anybody who played during that time had to develop a very thick skin in order to survive, for lack of a better word. I have it. I have a very thick skin to this day. I still get we get snap defensive very quickly because that's how we survived in our online spaces, because people were so hateful to us for so long. Because like you said, you were like, this is a format, I don't like it, but that's they're doing their thing over there. A lot of other people were like, this is a format, I don't like it, and I hate everyone who's in it. And I'm going to push down and beat down every single person that plays it. And that was something that cEDH players back in 2018 really had to fight through and fight hard to try and break through and out of. Thank God we did. But a lot of those players still have those defenses. Their skin is thick and their emotions are high because it sends them immediately back to those days where they said some really nasty things to us.
Yeah,
so we immediately just snap defend and say, and it just almost becomes an emotional response. And it takes a lot for me not to do that to this day. But thank God it's become a lot better nowadays.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend like I was an angel. I was a jerk. I was real mean to cEDH players for a long time, and I thought I was justified because they were ruining my games too. But I changed my mind. I grew as a human, and I learned, like, hey, guess what? These people are really nice and really kind, and they're just playing their own kind of magic. Why do I need that to be mine? But it's just sometimes, though, it's like it's sometimes it's just the reactions are weird, because like sometimes folks are
Yes.
complimenting cEDH or saying like, hey, I love this format and it would be better if we were able to do this thing, and people are like, oh my god, how could you say such a, like, yo, I get it, you're hurt, we're wounded, and you want to protect your space, but it feels a little bit like, and this is going to be a bit of an extreme example, but it feels a little bit like when you hear people who are like, we should legalize pot, and folks are like, absolutely not, all of my dealer friends will go to jail if we do that. I'm like, okay, well, let's calm down for a step. let's take 3 steps back, and let's it's got there's a very evangelical fervor right now of these kind of early cEDH players, and it's got this whole very like super defensive protect our cult type of thing. And I'm not saying it's a cult, but I'm just saying there's a mentality of certain like overly online people on both as like casual players who really just shut up and calm down and leave these people alone, and then like the cEDH players who probably are a little bit too ready to explode when anyone might say anything possible. Like, I remember I posted Lotus Petal once, and I was like, Lotus Petal is like, I don't get why you guys are playing it, it's just a treasure. And everybody was just like, I'm like,
I can't
like
wait.
asking
Yeah.
a legitimate question. Like, this is not my format. I'm just asking to learn, and you guys are like acting as if I've like besmirched the holy sanctum of the. I'm like, no, bro, it's a Lotus Petal.
It's a Lotus Petal. Yeah.
Chill.
It's a treasure, granted, but yeah, that's what it is. So, and that's a really good point that you bring up too. So we had this community that was bearing down on the cEDH community for so long and said that they hated us and they didn't want us around and you weren't welcome here. And what happened was we fought through that, and content creators showed that this actually is pretty fun, and more people got in and they came around, much like I came around back in 2018. Now, here's the thing. cEDH players out there, it is now time for us to grow. People aren't as, as hateful and spiteful and venomous as they used to be towards us. They don't hate us anymore. There's always the margins. There are always the outliers, but they're not the majority anymore. We now need to grow and start to assimilate, just like we asked and demanded that the casual community was said to accept us and say that we're okay and that we're not trying to hurt anyone's fun. Now we need to start saying, okay, instead of snapping at everybody who dares question you, or snapping at or getting mad at somebody or making fun of somebody, we need to be better people here. We need to show that we're a good community here and start to be accepting of the people who are asking these questions, because all they are is curious. And for God's sakes, take some criticism. It's not like we're not allowed to do that. It's okay to explain to somebody why something is or is not the way it is. You don't have to say you're a horrible person because we're becoming the people that we hated and that were attacking us so long ago. It's time that we grow as well as all of the rest of the commander population that did the growing before us.
Amen to that, man. It's like, if I had one thing I would like to ask cEDH players, it's that when I post a card, or when someone just posts a card and they're excited about it, you don't need to have your first reaction be, that's garbage in cEDH, it's too slow, or it's like unplayable trash, and like only, garbage casual commander. I'm like, dude, just chill. If someone's excited about a card, let them be excited about the card. It's fine. It's not for you. You can move on. Your format will do what you're going to do. Find the cards that are good for you and enjoy them. Yeah. Let this person celebrate their 7 mana, do nothing that makes them happy. Chill. Right? Like,
yeah, exactly. But like I said, we're still trying to brush off the knee-jerk reactions from those days when people were, and it's a slow process, is what it is.
We have to grow. But sometimes we just need reminders.
Yeah, exactly. And from all sides, quite frankly. And like, I'm not saying that every cEDH player is like this. I'm not saying that it's, I'm not trying to.
The terminally online ones who are like, the 2 online casuals, 2 online cEDH players need to go and just breathe a little and be like, yo, not everything is a direct attack on us. Not everyone saying I like X means that they hate Y. It just means they like X.
Just
right?
means that they like it. Yeah.
Like it's fine to like something without also assuming that liking not everything's a binary. We don't need to have like it's not that you can only like this or that. We can like multiple things. We can
And
dislike
by
multiple
liking
things.
something, it doesn't automatically associate you with hating the opposite.
Right.
That's
Like,
not how
dude,
it is.
I don't care. I want you to have the most fun playing the best kind of Magic that you want to play. I want to help facilitate whatever it is that will help you enjoy your games of Magic the most. That doesn't mean I want to play your kind of Magic or that I need you to play my kind of Magic. I just want to help you get the best you can with the folks that as long as the people at your table are all on the same page, that's all I care about. Right? Like, as long as you guys are all playing the game you want to be playing, help me facilitate that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, and you not accepting you playing it as your format does not equal your condemnation of that format.
No,
and that's a common confusion.
I feel like that's
online.
also just a lesson that can be extended to all of humanity.
Yeah, that's true. That's a life lesson,
just
not a Magic lesson.
It's okay to like a thing without also saying that everything else is terrible, and it's okay to not like a thing. You don't have to. Not everything is for you. It's fine.
Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't mean that you hate the people that like it. Doesn't mean that you hate it. It just means that it's not
just not the thing. I'm like, look, I think cEDH is rad. I love watching it. I love hearing stories about people playing cEDH. I'm not particularly interested in stack battles. That's just not the game I want to play. But there are a few cEDH decks I'm definitely going to build just because they're silly fun looking. Like, I love Kinnan monsters. I mean, dude, it's everything I want out of a Timmy game. But like, I can exist, you can exist, and we can be friends, and it's fine.
Exactly. And the thing is that everyone's starting to come around on this. We got a couple of people. Better. Yeah, I think both sides of the community are getting better. You know, a lot of people that were very defensive are getting less defensive. A lot of people that were, and that was on both sides. You know, a lot of people that you see playing only Commander are starting to play cEDH as well, not in place of, as well, on top of, and vice versa. A lot of the diehard cEDH players you saw out there talk about their casual decks and stuff like that. So it's all melding together in very positive ways, but melding requires mixing, and sometimes mixing can be friction and explosive and volatile. But we'll get there eventually. It just takes time.
Amen. This has been a lovely talk, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate this. And like I said, I'm a big fan of what you guys do. I think you've set an example for a lot of content creators to be able to, it's a goal for us to attain. And so if folks wanted to find you or your content, where can they go?
Sure. You're going to basically be able to find us at our main channel is on YouTube. So YouTube, just type in Playing with Power MTG into the search box and you will find us. We are also basically on just about all the other socials you'll normally run into. We're on Twitter/X or whatever you want to call it. We're on Instagram, TikTok, all that good jazz. Just look up Playing with Power MTG.
Cool. And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gearpuri Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. on Tuesdays, or at YouTube on Tuesdays. Thank you to my editor, EK. And you can also find me on the Shivam Wheeler Love Magic podcast, which comes out twice a month, where we sit and talk about all of our favorite, like, we go through every single set in the history of Magic, one set at a time, and talk about every card from the viewpoint of just casual scrubs in the LGS. It is delightful. It's just loving Magic. And also my other podcast, Chronicles of Dragonlance, where I sit with my friend and we sit and talk about Dragonlance one book at a time. And we just finished Autumn Twilight and we'll be moving into Winter Night. And I guess I also have a Patreon, which I should revamp and post somewhere. But remember, my friends, it's not Magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.